New U.S. security alerts today, February 11th, 2026, as we're hearing that flights were grounded for 10 days in El Paso and then reopened. So temporary grounding of flights. And this coming as also today we're hearing that Benjamin Netanyahu met with Donald Trump and they're trying to give peace a chance, but they're saying that it is looking like we're going in the direction of war here. And Donald Trump has said that the consequences, if there is no deal, is going to be extremely severe. And all of this coming with the flights being canceled and the Pentagon warning just a couple of weeks ago of a heightened threat of potential attacks to the U.S. homeland. Let me know, are you concerned about some of the conflicts around the world spilling over into the homeland of the United States? If you think so, put yes. If you think no, put no. Let me know what you're concerned about. But let's go ahead and take a look at the latest headlines so that way you can see what is going on here. Now, the Pentagon, FAA dispute over lasers to thwart cartel drones led to the airspace closure. According to the Associated Press's sources, they say the airspace closure over El Paso, Texas was initially supposed to last for 10 days. So they're saying this was a major security concern at first. But take a look at the information coming out here. Officials claim that drone incursion led to the shutdown of El Paso Airport. And also, U.S. military shot down a party balloon after assessing as a drone, according to reports. So we have conflicting information coming out here. Now, this comes, though, as we're hearing they are on high alert because, as you can see here, January 26th of this year, the Pentagon warns of future wars that may hit U.S. soil as a direct military threat grows. As we are getting closer to a potential war, they're saying there are major concerns about this spilling over into the United States, so that might be the reason for the heightened alert. In addition to that, take a look coming out 7 hours ago today, Trump to Netanyahu. The U.S. prefers a deal with Iran to war for now. And here's another one. Pentagon prepares a second aircraft carrier to deploy to the Middle East. You can see this coming out today as well. Trump is ratcheting up the pressure on Iran to make a deal over its nuclear program. So right now we're hearing that we could see war take place between the United States and Iran. The concerns are this spilling over into the U.S. homeland, and you're seeing that in El Paso we had heightened alert concerns, and the information is still conflicting at this time. We have not received exactly what it was that's going on. Some are saying it might have just been a party balloon. Some are saying that there might have been drone issues. Some are saying this might have been a U.S. Testing of our drones. I'm going to share with you the latest articles, video footage, so you can see it for yourself. But we're going to dive right in, get you caught up on the latest so that way you know exactly what is going on. Now, before we dive in, do me a favor. Please take a second, hit that thumbs up like button. I see we got over 1,200 people live with me in the room currently. If we get that up to 600, it helps out the live stream a ton. So if you haven't done so yet, please take a second. Helps out a lot. Also, subscribe to stay up to date. It's totally free. Why not? I'll keep you up to speed on everything as it unfolds. And in addition to that, as you guys know here on the channel, I cite all of my sources. I put it on the screen, show you the dates, where they're coming from. I read right from them so that way you can know and rest assured this is the latest. They're also going to be hyperlinked in the description along with additional resources as well. But let's go ahead and get right to it so you can see the latest. And let's go ahead and start off with some video footage as we're hearing the FAA had shut down the El Paso airport for 10 days. A lot of people extremely concerned in this heightened security alert environment. And now we're hearing it has been reopened, and we're still not sure what it was that unfolded. Let's go ahead and take a look at some video footage.
Okay, back on that story now, where the FAA has reopened the airspace around the airport, El Paso, Texas, only moments ago. Flights were announced to be grounded last night for, quote, special security reasons. That closure was supposed to last 10 days. Never heard of that before. That could have been very problematic for folks trying to leave the area. It's a 6-hour drive to Phoenix, 7 to San Antonio, 9 to Dallas, 10 to Houston. Jeff Paul is live in L.A. to bring us what's happening on this now. Jeff, strange stuff here. What you learn? Hello.
Well, yeah, very strange, because just 30 minutes ago, everyone was preparing for a 10-day airport shutdown in El Paso, and now it appears, according to the FAA, that ground stop at the El Paso airport has been lifted. Now, the FAA hasn't put out too much information as to why the airspace was going to close, other than a post on the FAA website indicating it was for special security reasons. But now the FAA says there is no threat to commercial aviation. all flights will resume as normal. Now, according to Reuters, airline sources told them the grounding of flights was believed to be tied to the Pentagon's use of counter-drone technology to address Mexican drug cartels' use of drones at the U.S.-Mexico border. The airport, though, we should mention, is positioned directly next to military base Fort Bliss and Biggs Army Airfield. And it's worth pointing out, this airport serves the nation's 23rd largest city, so it could have created massive disruptions and likely still will, just given the nature of this shutdown. Now, passengers in El Paso who were informed were left stunned at the time when they were told.
I didn't get any notifications from the airline. I just kind of saw all the cops here and the news cameras, and now, if it's closed for 10 days, we can't get out.
This is a shocker. It really is. Complete shock. To close the airport down for 10 days, that's incredible. I've never experienced anything. I don't think I've ever read of any airport in the United States and the world that's been shut down for 10 days, other than war.
Now, Texas Democratic Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, who serves El Paso, called the ground stop highly consequential. She wrote on X that from what her office had gathered, there's no immediate threat to the community or surrounding areas, and that no advance notice was given to her office or the city. While the ground stop has been lifted, we still don't know what led to that order to shut down the airport for some 10 days. Fox has reached out to multiple government agencies, Bill, for clarity. We're waiting to hear back.
Okay, indeed. Maybe we'll get Sean Duffy on to explain this, and we'll wait for that if that happens. Thanks, sir.
There you have it, you guys. Man, now let me know your thoughts. Do you believe them? I saw some people in the comments saying, like, no, they're claiming that this was a drone thing or lasers. We're hearing a bunch of different reports. They're saying, okay, it's okay. We're going to open it back up. Some people saying, no, there's something going on that they're not telling us. Let me know in the comments. Do you believe what they're telling you right now? That this is in fact what it was? If so, put yes. If no, put no. Let me know your thoughts. But again, we're in a heightened state of alert right now as the Pentagon released just a couple of weeks ago concerns about potential attacks on U.S. soil. We're hearing things are escalating with the potential for war with Iran. So we will see. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at some more video footage. As this first came out about 14 hours ago, I'm going to play for you the video footage that was initially released so you can see it for yourself. Now, the clip that we just watched came out a couple hours after that initial report as they reopened, but now you can see what originally unfolded. Let's go ahead and take a look.
Overnight, the FAA shutting all airspace over El Paso, Texas for the next 10 days for unspecified security reasons, warning any planes violating can be shot down. Closing airspace over a major U.S. city for this reason is very rare and has not happened since after 9/11. Pilot and aviation expert Kyle Bailey is a former member of the FAA safety team, and he joins us now. Good morning to you, Kyle.
Good morning, Ainsley.
Good morning. What do you think this means? FAA is saying special security reasons, but they're not elaborating.
The interesting thing is this is in the vicinity of Fort Bliss and also the Biggs Field, which are both military installations. And the duration, we're talking 10 days. Normally, TFRs, temporary flight restrictions, could be hours, could be a day, could be 2 days if it's for VIPs. But it's unprecedented for a 10-day temporary flight restriction from the surface up to 18,000 feet and a 10-mile radius. If it was like a spaceship launch or something like that, or something going up to space, that would be unlimited. But there's a cap at 18. But 18,000 feet itself is very, very high for a temporary flight restriction. So it's definitely something big, like a national security event, a very high-level VIP. But the interesting thing is that on the Mexican side of the border, there's no flight restriction. So that would lead me to believe that whatever is happening is not in conjunction with the Mexican government.
Interesting.
Because if it was that airspace on the other side, probably the Mexican government probably would issue some kind of warning or restriction. We don't see that. But I think it's safe to say it's something very big, either from a national security standpoint or perhaps testing something. Equipment or something going into the air around the vicinity of those bases.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking up what happens at Fort Bliss, major U.S. Army installation, home of 1st Armored Division, premier training site for desert warfare and armored units. It supports 90,000 soldiers. So I instantly think security reasons, special security reasons, that there's been a threat to Fort Bliss. And that might actually make more sense when you're saying that the airspace over Mexico has not been shut down. But could it be? Well, could it be staffing shortages of the air traffic control? However, if you read the statement from the FAA, they say the FAA on short notice issued a temporary flight restriction halting all flights to and from El Paso and our neighboring community, Santa Teresa, New Mexico. The restriction prohibits all aircraft operations, including commercial, cargo, and general aviation, until February 20th.
I doubt it's air traffic control. If that was the issue, they would move somebody from another facility anywhere in the country. That's not really very busy airspace. It's not like New York or Philadelphia or Los Angeles. It could very easily be staffed. So I do not think it's air traffic control, but it's definitely something very big happening. Okay. Either that or testing something that's going into the air, I would suspect.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kyle.
There you have it, you guys. So they said that they didn't know what it was initially, but they thought that it was something big. It was a major security concern. They said they were going to be shutting down the airport for 10 days, which they said was unprecedented. They said this was something that was a massive undertaking. And now they're, some time has passed. We're hearing that they're opening it back up. So what do you think it was? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think it was drones? If so, put drones. Do you think it was a balloon? As some reports are claiming that it was actually a party balloon that was mistaken for a drone. Do you think it was something else? Let me know in the comments your thoughts, but let's go ahead and take a look at some of these articles so that way you can see the latest coming out on this. I'm going to share with you what has been coming out here. And again, we're in a heightened state of alert right now as well. So if their responses are very aggressive and jumpy, well, we heard from the Pentagon that they should be, because right now they are concerned about threats to the homeland of the United States. Pentagon FAA dispute over lasers to thwart cartel drones led to airspace closure, according to sources from the Associated Press. It says the sudden and surprising airspace closure over El Paso, Texas on Wednesday today, first announced as extending for 10 days but lasting only a few hours, stem from the Pentagon's plan to test a laser to shoot down drones used by Mexican drug cartels, according to 3 people familiar with the situation who spoke on conditions of anonymity to share sensitive details. Now, that caused friction with the Federal Aviation Administration, which wanted to ensure commercial air safety, and the 2 agencies sought to coordinate, according to 2 of the people. Now, despite a meeting scheduled later this month to discuss the issue, the Pentagon wanted to go ahead and test the laser, prompting the FAA to shutter the airspace over the city on the U.S.-Mexico border. It was not clear whether the laser was ultimately deployed. Transportation Security Sean Duffy said earlier that the airspace closed as the Defense Department and the FAA halted the incursion by Mexican cartel drones, and that the threat has been neutralized. Drone incursions are not uncommon along the U.S.-Mexico border. Andrew, thank you so much for the $2 super chat. Says Steve, thank you for covering this on 2 fronts. You are very welcome. The restrictions were only in place for a couple of hours in the city of nearly 700,000 people, but it is unusual for an entire airport to shut down even for a short time. Stranded travelers with luggage lined up at the airline ticket counters and car rental desks before the order was lifted. Normal flights resumed in the morning after 7 arrivals and 7 departures were canceled. Some medical evacuation flights also had been rerouted. Now, top videos, Jorge Rueda, 20, and Yamilexi Mesa, 21, of Las Cruces, New Mexico, had their morning flight to Portland, Oregon canceled, so they were losing part of their Valentine's Day weekend trip. Now, they said that they were glad that the 10 days turned into just 2 hours. They were booked on an evening flight out of El Paso. So we're hearing that this was a huge concern, but they were saying that it was just testing of certain lasers to see about addressing Mexican cartel drones. Now, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe that that is, in fact, what it was? They had initially announced that they were going to be shutting things down for 10 days. but it ended up being 2 hours. Here's another one coming out on this. Let's go ahead and take a look here. Officials claim the drone incursion led to shutdowns of El Paso Airport. The Secretary of Transportation said that the military had neutralized a drug cartel drone. Two officials said testing of counter-drone technology prompted the closure. The FAA initially said that it would last for 10 days. So we're getting some interesting information coming out here. Now, here's the latest. Officials on Wednesday offered conflicting explanations for a temporary closure of the airspace over El Paso after the Federal Aviation Administration rescinded an order issued hours earlier to ground flights for 10 days. So again, even this article right here acknowledging it quite plainly, conflicting information has been coming out. We are not really sure of these explanations. Let me know your thoughts. Sean Duffy, the Secretary of Transportation, and officials from the White House and the Pentagon said Mexican cartel drones breached U.S. airspace. Okay, so here we're hearing cartel drones breached U.S. airspace, prompting temporary closure of the airspace over El Paso. But two people briefed by the Trump administration officials said that the shutdown was prompted by Defense Department's use of new counter-drone technology and concerns about the risks that it could pose to other aircrafts in the area. Now, initially, the agency cited special security reasons late Tuesday night, halting all flights to and from El Paso International Airport for 10 days and isolating a major American metropolitan area from air travel. Now, the closure, which appeared to surprise state and local officials, went into effect at 11:30 p.m. local time on Tuesday and was lifted a little before 7 a.m. on Wednesday. There is no threat to commercial aviation, the agency said on social media. All flights will resume as normal. Representative Veronica Escobar, an El Paso Democrat, pushed back on the drone explanation given by the Trump administration officials, saying at a news conference that it was not the information that we in Congress have been told. Wow, okay, so somebody else coming out as well and saying this is conflicting information, this is false. She added there was not a threat, which is why the FAA lifted the restrictions so quickly. The information coming from the administration does not add up. Let me know, do you agree with her in the comments? If you agree, put agree. If you disagree, put disagree. But she is saying that this does not make sense, it doesn't add up, and they're not telling us the full truth of what's going on in El Paso to call for a 10-day shutdown of all flights in the airport. Now, Renard Johnson, the mayor of El Paso, said at a news conference that many local officials remained unclear why the agency took such a dramatic action and that the failure to communicate is unacceptable. He said it has resulted in a series of chaotic events around El Paso, including medical evacuation flights forced to divert to Las Cruces, New Mexico, a city about 45 miles to the northwest. This unnecessary decision has caused chaos and confusion in El Paso communities, Mr. Johnson said. I want to be very, very clear that this should have never happened. You cannot restrict airspace over a major city without coordinating with the city, the airport, the hospitals, the community leadership. Here's what else to know. Cartel drones. Drones have become a prominent tool and weapon used by Mexican cartels across Mexico in recent years. According to cartel operatives, security analysts, and some government officials on both sides of the border. While Trump administration officials have warned for months about cartels using them near the U.S.-Mexico border, Mexican officials have publicly been more skeptical, downplaying the threat that drones pose at the border. Counter-drone program. Now in July, Stephen Willoughby, Deputy Director for the Counter-Drone Program at the Homeland Security Department, testified before Congress and asked lawmakers to continue the program. He said that 27,000 drones had flown within about 1,650 feet of the border over a 6-month period in 2024, piloted by organizations hostile to law enforcement. He did not go into detail of the nature of the anti-drone technology that the department was testing. Airport. The airport in El Paso, the 23rd most populous city in the nation, according to the 2020 census, serves a vast swath of West Texas and eastern New Mexico and offers direct flights to hubs across the southwestern United States, as well as to cities like Atlanta, Chicago, Denver, Los Angeles, and Seattle. The nearest major U.S. airport is in Albuquerque, about 270 miles away. Disruptive travel. Alex Torres, 42, was among the travelers who arrived at the airport unaware that flights had been grounded. Miss Torres, who was expecting to fly to New York for business, said she spoke with American Airlines representatives on the phone who have yet to hear the news. They didn't know anything about the airport being closed, she said. So there you have it, another one giving some information, and they're outright saying conflicting information coming out. They're not really sure what it was for certain, according to these news reports. And here's another one. Take a look at this. U.S. military shot down a party balloon after assessing as a drone, reports say. Let's take a look at this. The U.S. military shot down what it initially assessed to be a suspicious drone near El Paso, Texas, only later to determine that the object was a party balloon, according to multiple reports. Fox News first reported that the airborne object was intercepted after raising concerns of a potential drone operating near the southern border. Officials later concluded that the object was not an unmanned aircraft, but a party balloon, U.S. officials told the outlets. Now, the airstrike prompted a temporary closure of the airspace around El Paso International Airport for what authorities described as security reasons. The Federal Aviation Administration later lifted the restriction, stating there was no threat to commercial travel, according to Fox reports. Newsweek reached out to the FAA and the Pentagon via email for comments Wednesday afternoon. Now, here's why it matters. The airspace shutdown prompted concerns and speculation that there may be an escalation of U.S. action against Mexico should the reported drone be linked to the drug cartels. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum denied the allegation earlier Wednesday, the latest in a series of comments from her on a potential threat of military action on Mexico's soil over drug smuggling into the United States. Now, CBS News reports that the airspace shutdown followed internal disagreements between the Pentagon officials and the FAA over drone-related testing in the area. According to sources cited by CBS, the military had been conducting counter-drone operations near Fort Bliss, including the use of anti-drone technology designed to disable or destroy unmanned aerial systems. The FAA initially issued a notice closing airspace below 18,000 feet for up to 10 days, an unusually broad restriction that disrupted civilians and medical flights. The closure was lifted within hours after discussions among federal officials, including at the White House. Sources told CBS that at least one airborne object targeted during the operation was later determined to be a party balloon. Officials also indicated that there may have been legitimate drone activity near the border, potentially involving cartel-linked unmanned aircraft, though details remain unclear. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy described the shoot-down as involving a suspect cartel drone incursion that had been neutralized, according to CBS. However, the misidentification of the balloon raised questions about the circumstances that led to both the shoot-down and the temporary grounding of flights. Now, Sheinbaum said that her government had no information indicating drone activity crossing into Mexican airspace during the airstrike. Now, here's what people are saying. Veronica Escobar, representative for Texas, a Democrat whose district includes El Paso, said in a statement earlier on Wednesday, "Today, I believe the FAA owes the community and the country an explanation as to why this happened so suddenly and abruptly, and why it was lifted so suddenly and abruptly as well." And let me know if you agree. If it was a party balloon, if it was a drone incursion, if it was testing of lasers against drones, whatever the case is, we saw a major escalation of all flights being canceled for a 10-day period, and then just a couple hours later, hearing that that was lifted. What do you think is going on? El Paso Mayor Renard Johnson, Wednesday morning, said medical evacuation flights were forced to divert to Las Cruces. All aviation operations were grounded, including emergency flights. This was a major and unnecessary disruption, one that has not occurred since 9/11. And I saw a lot of headlines on this. They were saying that we have not seen a shutdown and major concerns like this since the 9/11 attacks, saying that this was a massive, massive call that was just very aggressive to take, causing a lot of people to be concerned. What is going on? So what happens next? Mexican Defense and Navy secretaries were set to meet with Washington, D.C. officials on Wednesday, while the country's security secretary will meet with the U.S. counterparts Thursday as a part of ongoing discussions between the two nations. So there you have it, you guys. A major scare coming out today with that. Now, we're going to see what unfolds if there's any more information, but a lot of people saying that these concerns are in place, rightly so, because take a look. As you'll recall, just a couple of weeks ago, the Pentagon has warned that future wars may hit U.S. soil as direct military threats grow. And what they're basically saying is that as we are looking at potential wars involving the United States right now in 2026, there is major concerns about attacks against U.S. soil, involving drone attacks, involving nuclear attacks, cyber attacks, lone wolf threats, terror attacks here on the United States. Let me know in the comments, is this a concern of yours as well? If you think so, drop it in the comments. Put yes. If no, put no. Let me know your thoughts. And if you haven't done so yet, please take a second, hit that like button. But we're hearing that war could be right around the corner for the United States. As take a look today, 8 hours ago from the time of this recording, Trump and Netanyahu, the U.S. prefers a deal with Iran to war for now. So we're hearing that that meeting took place today. It was expedited. This meeting was not supposed to take place until about 2 weeks from now. We're hearing that it took place immediately. We're hearing that this was expedited because the concern of escalation with the United States and Iran is rising. And Netanyahu is saying we need to be prepared and have a game plan right now. And the Pentagon, we're hearing, as of today, is preparing a second aircraft carrier to deploy to the Middle East. Trump is ratcheting up the pressure on Iran to make a deal over its nuclear program. And he said that if they do not, the consequences are going to be extremely severe. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at some more video footage so that way you can see what's come out. And then we're going to dive into the details in these articles.
President Trump hosting right now Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House. And consider what's going on around this. This comes just days after U.S. and Iranian officials resumed those nuclear negotiations. And of course, the backdrop to all of this is that President Trump has said he is still considering sending a second aircraft carrier. He's serious on getting a deal done. Senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy. Peter.
And if you listen closely throughout this report, you can hear in the background there is a small but very noisy group of anti-Netanyahu protesters out on the corner of Pennsylvania Avenue and 17th Street. We can all hear them at the White House as the Prime Minister's busy day continues. We learned on social media that it began with a pretty consequential signature. We learned on social media Prime Minister Netanyahu signed up in the presence of Secretary of State Rubio as a member of the Board of Peace. That is the board that will eventually govern Gaza. Its first chairman will be President Trump, a job that he has suggested he could stay in even once his term as president is over. Now that the Gaza business is taken care of, the top of the to-do list is Iran's nuclear program.
First and foremost, the negotiations with Iran. I will present to the president our ideas about the principles in the negotiations, the important principles.
According to Axios, President Trump is considering sending a second carrier strike group to the Middle East, but the goal is just to pressure the regime into a nuclear deal, not to pressure the Ayatollah to step down.
Well, look, I mean, if the Iranian people want to overthrow the regime, that's up to the Iranian people. What we're focused on right now is the fact that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. That's been the focus of the president's policy, even going back to the first administration.
President Trump keeps saying he thinks the Iranians want to make a nuclear deal with the U.S. But if things fall apart, the president has also shown with his military orders over the last couple months that he is willing to send in the B-2s. Harris?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
There you have it, you guys. Now let me know your thoughts. Do you think we're going to be having war with Iran? If so, put war in the comments. If you think we're going to be able to get a deal, put deal. We're going to see, but we're hearing that there are more reports coming out as things are escalating. As I mentioned to you, that meeting with Netanyahu was supposed to happen in 2 weeks. They expedited that meeting, said it needs to happen immediately. We need to have a game plan in place. And out of that meeting, they said that they want peace. They want to try to give peace a chance, but they said that they are prepared to have severe consequences if a deal cannot be made. A lot of video footage coming out on this today. Let's go ahead and take a look at some more.
Well, on a separate note, it's heating up over in the Middle East. President Trump is set to meet with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after moving up his visit amid ongoing U.S.-Iranian negotiations. As you know, if the U.S. and Iran clash, they're going to go after Israel, too. President Trump now telling Axios he may send a second aircraft carrier strike group to the Middle East if talks with Iran fail, and we all know they are going to. The director of the Center for National Security at the Heritage Foundation and architect of the Abraham Accords, Robert Greenray, joins us now. Robert, what do you think Netanyahu tells the president? They got a great relationship, but they have a very direct relationship. A few weeks ago, he said, Mr. President, please wait. What do you think he's saying now?
I think he's communicating to the president that Iran is unlikely to get to a negotiated settlement, as you rightly indicate. They seem to think that they're negotiating with the appeasers in the Biden administration and haven't adjusted. And they've done the heavy lifting already, disarming Iran. They're broke and wildly unpopular, not a very good negotiating position. And I think Prime Minister Netanyahu is communicating that, and I think there's broad agreement on the opportunity that presents itself. And certainly Iran does not have the capacity to adequately threaten the United States, but it's not completely defenseless. And I think that's why additional assets may be required and may be on their way into the theater.
They got about 2,000 ballistic missiles, I understand, but I would trust your numbers better. What Israel wants from the U.S.-Iran negotiations, dismantle the nuclear enrichment facilities. We've been waiting on that. Limits of Iran's missile program, they said it's not on the table. And the end of Iranian support for regional militias, they said they're not even going to discuss it. So it's going to be 0 for 3. And then?
Yeah, and then it looks as though force may still yet be required. And again, Midnight Hammer took the nuclear program off the table. So the ballistic missile program is all that they've got left. And that, of course, remains a target that both Israel and the United States and, frankly, the region should be interested in eliminating. And once that happens, Iran is no longer the principal threat in the region, and we're in a new Middle East. And I think that's the horizon that both the president and the prime minister are steering towards.
Here is Nikki Haley, former governor of South Carolina, ambassador to the UN, presidential candidate, last night on this historic opportunity. Watch.
This is a legacy-defining moment for President Trump. Iran has never been weaker than they are right now. The key at the end of the day is no nuclear enrichment, no more ballistic missile or drone activity, making sure the Iranian people finally have the freedom that they deserve, and no more money going to their proxies.
She's right, isn't she?
Yeah, and I think that's been the president's goal from the first administration and the second. The difference is, of course, now he's taken decisive steps to get closer to it. And I think we're not far from it. Iran won't do it themselves. It'll have to be imposed, and we'll all be better off for it.
I know it doesn't produce votes or a guarantee of midterm victory, but this is the most consequential foreign policy president that I've had in our lifetime. And even if you disagree with what he's doing, he's making an impact in all the trouble spots.
There's no question, and this is not isolated. This, of course, impacts Russia's access to resources because Iran is also another major oil exporter, and so do his actions in Venezuela. And, of course, China is a major importer of Iran's oil. So this operation has strategic implications. There's no question about it. And there's an economic side of it, of course, with stability in the global markets. The president's mindful of all of this, and there's a lot of upside here. And so I can expect that we'll see decisive action as he's continued to show.
And hopefully he'll call on you to expand the Abraham Accords because you are the expert in that area. Robert Greenway, thanks so much.
There you have it, you guys. Now, that particular individual saying he's expecting some decisive action from the Trump administration going forward. If you appreciate the Trump administration, don't forget to drop a 47 in the comments for support for Donald Trump, what he's doing, and how he's handling right now these global conflicts. We're going to see if we're going to have war or peace. But let's go ahead and take a look at some more because, like I said, a lot coming out today as it appears things are escalating.
President Trump meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu earlier at the White House to discuss Iran. The president says that Tehran wants a deal very badly, but it's also making it clear that he's ready to use America's military to force one.
We have a massive flotilla right now going over to Iran. We'll see what happens. I think they want to make a deal. I think they'd be foolish if they didn't. We took out their nuclear power last time, and we'll have to see if we take out more this time. I'd rather make a deal. It's got to be a good deal. No nuclear weapons, no missiles, no this, no that, all the different things that you want.
And the president is threatening to order another aircraft carrier strike group to the Middle East to apply more pressure to Iran. And it's no mystery that after the operation this summer that took out the nuclear facility, Larry, this regime has been severely weakened. And I think they're acting out of desperation right now. It would be in their interest to do a deal. But a lot of people say you can't trust them to do any kind of credible deal. So I think the president is going this route to explore it, to see what happens. But he's still got his options on the table. And I would just say this. I read an article last night. This was in the New York Post, citing sources on the ground in Iran. And the title is Iranian Regime Executing Wounded Protesters in Hospital Beds as brutal retribution continues every day. So to me, he had kind of drawn a red line on this, saying, if you keep killing people, this is not going to be good for you. And I just wonder where it goes. And Israel is a large part of this.
Yes, well, I just, I listened intently. I asked the question, and you heard part of the answer. And he was quite serious. I was looking at his face. I mean, he would rather have a deal, I guess. I just, don't believe anything Iran ever says. And they're killer cutthroats. I mean, the mullahs are awful. The economy's collapsed. The currency's collapsed. But they've killed a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, your point of this story about in the hospital, killing people in the hospital is just sick. We had, General Keane on. Jack Keane said they'd killed 30,000 people.
Yeah.
Which is a lot bigger than
anything that was reported.
That's right,
yeah.
Massively. And I've heard that number, 30,000, from some other national security types. So I don't know. Look, the president knows what he's doing here. He's operating with the best intelligence. He has terrific Joint Chiefs of Staff. He has Rubio. He has Hegseth. It's going to be what it'll be. I just can't imagine ever believing anything they say.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Then where do you go from here? If you're operating from a standpoint in a negotiation, in a deal where you can never believe or trust the other side, what does the end point look like?
Look, my hope is, Taylor, the end point is absolute destruction of anything to do with the current regime. All right? I don't care. They're office buildings, they're Capitol buildings, they're military buildings. It's the only thing that, this regime has to go. How that happens, I don't know. Who will take over? I think it has to, I don't think it comes from the Shah's son. I think it has to come from somebody on the ground in Iran, the protesters.
Leadership, you mean.
There's a lot that I don't know about here. And all I know is it's been 50 years, all right? And if you get rid of this regime, you will truly change the Middle East. You may change Europe, too, for all I know. And, of course, these people hate us. They hate America, right? You've been making a deal with people that openly hate America. And, of course, they hate Israel. And they hate freedom. And they hate free market capitalism. And they hate their own people. And the Iranian diaspora is huge. They can finance a new regime if they can get the right leadership to get. I don't know.
I think I told you my mom legally immigrated here from Iran before the revolution. We have these discussions all the time. We believe President Trump is the only one that can take this regime down. So I look at the window here and say, either he will do it or maybe they've got another 50 years behind them, because I don't believe anybody else can.
Yes, I agree. Look. The whole history, they lie, cheat, and steal. They never let anybody in to authenticate. They never let inspectors in with the nuclear weapons. We had this whole UN thing going on, and and the UN people, believe it or not, turned against Iran. Even European countries have coddled Iran. They're doing business with Iran, and they're not doing business with Israel. That's pathetic right there. But that's Europe. I'm just saying, you can't trust them, you can't believe them. But the president is saying this. Maybe he's stalling for time to build up more resources. To your other point, which I thought was a good point, maybe he's making sure the world knows he did everything he could do. Right.
It does sound a lot like what he was saying about Maduro right before he went in and took out Maduro. He was doing his deal of switching between threats and promises of talking to the guy. He had a phone conversation with Maduro just about a week before he took him out. The difference, though, and Jackie, I'm sure you've heard a lot of stories from your mother about this, is that these people have have a fanaticism, a jihadist fanaticism that you didn't have to worry about in Venezuela. Maduro had virtually no support. He was just one of the mafia dons and one of the lesser mafia dons. So it was easier, certainly, to take him out. Here you have, I don't know what it would be, 5 to 10% of the population, which is still about 5 to 10 million people who are fanatically jihadists and who will fight to the death in order to prove their point.
Never really, my mom would say that I never really understood it until I lived there and I saw that these people really drink the Kool-Aid. I saw it with my own eyes and I said, wow, this is going to be impossible to disband. Brian?
The problem, I'm sorry.
No.
I was just going to add, this is what Jack Keane said. The problem with this story, with the on-the-ground revolution, is they don't have the guns, but the regime has the guns, okay? Just that simple from a great military man. That's a very important point. I don't know how this ends if we don't do it, but I don't know.
Well, I just say this. You got to define what a deal means, because he says he'd rather have a deal than the alternative. But, of course, the deal can be you all need to leave. And you can leave and keep your lives, or you can leave. Deal. So I kind of feel like what he's saying is, we'll either remove you or you can remove yourselves, and that would be the deal.
But it is, yes, okay. And there was rumors about the head mullah going to Moscow.
Yeah.
But it's a military state. The military runs that place. I mean, the mullahs give this patina religious with hardly.
I think the y'all is all of that. I think it's the mullahs and the top generals.
It's it's the PRG and the secret police and the killing people in the hospitals. And, oh my God!
There you have it, you guys. Man, let me know your thoughts. And so they're saying that, man, now could be the time to take out the regime. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think that Trump should strike the IRGC? Remove them out of power? If so, put strike in the comments. Would you strike them right now? As they're saying that this is a window of opportunity. You heard that one individual, that woman, say that her family migrated here from Iran prior to the regime taking place. And she said that right now that she believes that Trump is the only person that can do this. She said that he needs to do it now. Otherwise, she believes the IRGC will have another 50 years or so behind them, because she said she believes right now Trump is the only person that's going to be able to remove the IRGC. Put strike in the comments if you think that Trump should go ahead and move forward with this. But let's go ahead and take a look at some more footage coming out with details, as it says retaliation capability. Keane signals that Iran can still unleash major responses. Let's go ahead and take a look.
On this trip, we will discuss a number of issues. Gaza, the region, but of course, first and foremost, the negotiations with Iran. I'll present to the President our ideas about the principles in the negotiations, the important principles, and in my opinion, they're important not only for Israel, but for everyone in the world who wants peace and security in the Middle East.
That's Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu departing for his meeting today at the White House. President Trump remaining optimistic on talks with Iran, but still considering sending a second aircraft carrier to strike Iran if negotiations fail. Netanyahu is expected to push for Tehran to stop its uranium enrichment program, scale back ballistic missile development, and cut ties with terrorist proxies across the Middle East. Joining me now is Fox News senior strategic analyst and chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, General Jack Keane. General, good morning to you. Thanks so much for being here. It doesn't seem like a stretch to just have a commitment not to support terrorist proxies across the Middle East. Your reaction to this?
Yeah, well, certainly the meeting between these two leaders is certainly, it's quite amazing. President Trump's been in power for 13 months, and this is his 7th meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu. You got to look at what he is. He's really a wartime commander, and President Trump certainly is full throttle in support of this wartime commander, because obviously they're our closest ally in the Middle East. And he is fighting Iran and its proxies, trying to literally destroy the state of Israel. This is what this has been about. And it's remarkable in a sense, because it reminds me of Roosevelt and Churchill, when Churchill was dealing with the Nazis and we hadn't been in the war yet, and Roosevelt was supporting him and talking to him on a regular basis, not just providing physical and material support, but obviously also moral support and intellectual support to the endeavor that they're doing. So the two of them seem to be married at the hip here, and I think it's absolutely the right approach. Coming into this, I think where we are is certainly President Trump is holding to the pattern that he's had in the past. Before he uses military force, he tries to establish a relationship and get a diplomatic solution. He has tried that before with Iran, before the Midnight Hammer attack on their nuclear facilities, and he certainly tried it with the Maduro regime. And this is where we are. And I think Prime Minister Netanyahu coming in certainly has some concerns about what the end state of negotiations would be. You mentioned the three major ingredients to them, Maria: nuclear, ballistic missiles, and no support for proxies. Those are likely the objectives. Iran is unlikely to agree to all of that, maybe just some of it. To stall. And why do I say stall? Because that's one of their tactics. They want to put off a military operation. Also, if they could get some kind of a deal, the second objective the Iranians have is to get sanction relief. We know for a fact that they cannot change the dimension of the frustration of the people in Iran who now want regime change. Why? Because their economy is in the tank and the quality of life that they have is in the tank as well. And they know full well that this regime does not have the capability to recover their society economically. And that being the case, they want sanction relief so they can get the revenues to do just that. That is their objective here. I think the likelihood is we will use military action here. I think that is the preferred option, and I think that is likely the path we'll be on after these negotiations do not achieve their objectives.
Wow, though that's quite significant. So Iran was in a weakened spot the last time we spoke in terms of the impact of the U.S. and Israeli strike on their infrastructure. And yet they come out swinging, continuing to come up with hostilities against the United States. How do you read the Iranians right now?
Yeah, well, what the Iranians have, their priority after the 12-day June war, certainly their nuclear program was, in a sense, dismembered and mostly destroyed. They want to recover that, but they haven't taken significant action to do that. Where they put all their effort into, Maria, was their ballistic missile program. The Israelis took down about 50% of it, of the missiles and storage capability and scores of launchers, but they worked earnestly to recover it. And they have recovered not all of it, but they have recovered much of it. And that is the Israelis' concern. They believe that the near-term threat to them is not a nuclear program, long-term threat for sure. Near-term threat is the ballistic missiles. They also have thousands of drones. Unlikely they would shoot them at Israel because it takes 6 to 8 hours to get there. They would use those against our bases in the region or maybe some of the allies in the region, to include short-range rockets. So Iran does have a retaliation capability, but that is why the buildup has taken place, Maria, in the region, as you identified, and even the potential of bringing more in, is to make certain that retaliation capability that they have in terms of a military strike is destroyed comprehensively very early in any operation that the Israelis and the United States combined would likely conduct against them.
All right. We'll be watching this active situation, tension spiking once again. General, always a pleasure. Thanks so much, sir.
There you have it, you guys. That was former four-star General Jack Keane, and he said that he believes the ultimate end result here is going to be that we are going to be going to war. He said that there's going to be strikes. Let me know if you agree with him in the comments. But take a look at these articles that have been coming out here. This one from Axios says that Trump and Netanyahu had a meeting today, and they prefer to have a deal with Iran as opposed to war for now. This article says that President Donald Trump stressed after a 3-hour meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Wednesday today that he wants to keep pursuing a deal with Iran rather than moving to military action at this time. Now, while Trump said his meeting with Netanyahu was very good, the Israeli Prime Minister is very skeptical about the prospects for diplomacy with Iran and inclined to support military action. Trump and Netanyahu also made divergent public statements before Israel attacked Iran in June, before coordinating closely in that operation. The U.S. and Iran resumed negotiations last Friday in Oman for the first time since June, But Trump has simultaneously launched a massive military buildup in the Gulf, and we've heard as of today that he said a second aircraft carrier might be on the way. Trump told Axios on Tuesday that he expects a second round of talks next week, but he might also send a second aircraft carrier strike group to the Gulf to strike Iran if the talks fail. Now, what they're saying, there was nothing definitive reached over other than I insisted that the negotiations with Iran continue to see whether or not a deal can be consummated. If it can, I let the Prime Minister know that would be our preference. If we cannot, we will just have to see what the outcome will be, Trump wrote on Truth Social after meeting with Netanyahu. Trump noted that before the 12-day war last June, Iran decided not to cut a deal with the United States. That did not work well for them. Hopefully this time, they will be more reasonable and responsible, Trump wrote. Now, Netanyahu's office said in a statement that he had emphasized the security needs of the State of Israel in the context of the negotiations with Iran, and that the two agreed to continue close coordination and communication between them. Both sides said Gaza was also discussed. Trump wrote that they discussed the tremendous progress being made in Gaza and the region in general. So there you have it. And in addition to that, we're hearing, as I mentioned, Trump is going to be sending over a second aircraft carrier just in case we have to go the route of war. Pentagon prepares a second aircraft carrier to deploy to the Middle East. Trump is ratcheting up the pressure on Iran to make a deal over its nuclear program. Now, the Pentagon was told a second aircraft carrier strike group is going to be prepared to deploy to the Middle East as the U.S. military readies for a potential attack on Iran, according to 3 U.S. officials. So we're hearing that right now we could be going the route of war. Donald Trump preparing for either option, either negotiations, as we're hearing that those will be taking place again here this upcoming week, or potential war as a second aircraft carrier is going to be going towards the direction of Iran. We're hearing that the United States is building up a military presence surrounding Iran, ready for a potential attack. So a lot developing today, February the 11th, 2026. We're going to be seeing what direction we go. And whatever unfolds here on the channel, I'll be sure to report it to you right away. A lot of people speculating we're going to be seeing some strikes here very soon, as we heard from former four-star General Jack Keane as well, saying ultimately he believes these negotiations are going to go nowhere, and we're going to be seeing some attacks. The United States could be entering into war with Iran, and there's warnings from the Pentagon about this spilling over into the United States. We're currently on high alert right now for potential attacks. And a lot of people getting spooked today as we saw San Antonio's airspace being shut down. They said for 10 days, according to the FAA. Then just a couple hours later, they said, nope, it's actually lifted. And now we're getting conflicting information as to what it was that actually was the cause of that shutdown. So we will see. I will keep you up to date, but a lot going on right now. And as it rolls out, I'll keep you up to speed here on the channel. But that is the latest, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to take a quick second, hit that thumbs up like button if you haven't done so yet. We're almost close to 1,000 likes while live. Subscribe to stay up to date. It's totally free. And all these articles linked in the description along with additional resources. But that is the latest, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. God bless.